really, really, really want a baby, or you don't have polycystic ovaries, but a huge worry. Warning, graphic, cried. Like, hello everyone and welcome back to the Storytime sofa. Now, you've probably guessed by the title that this Storytime is definitely a much more serious one. And I just felt like this video needed to be made because I think it's a lot more common than people actually realise. So this is all about why for 2.5, 3 years I did not think I was ever going to be able to have kids. I did not ever think I was going to be able to get pregnant. Everything to do with that. And this actually all stemmed from my Lyme's disease. I'm not quite sure how in my mind I completely blanked this out. Oh, also, hi, I'm MishaG, we do story times. I feel like I'm getting straight into the nitty gritty, which is good. But yeah, hi, I'm MishaG, welcome. So, I don't know how I somehow didn't even think to mention this, or it just didn't even cross my mind when I did my video all about Lyme's disease. I will link that down below if you have not seen that video, because I feel like that's a good starting point to then watch this one if you haven't. So, for me, this whole fear and this actual possibility of that being a thing all stemmed from the Lyme's disease. It really affected my hormone levels, and hence why I did not have a period for 2.5 years. Which I feel like people that have their periods would be like, oh my god, lucky you. Because yeah, I know periods are annoying and like, ugh, it's effort to deal with. But trust me, if you don't have them or you stop having them, you realise that it's not the case. It's a huge worry. Not only did I initially, when I first stopped getting my period, worry that I was pregnant, which I obviously wasn't, because that would have been impossible, but also you just don't know what your body is doing on the inside. And I feel like a lot of people go through this where their periods just stop and we're kind of just told like, yeah, it's fine, but it is reflecting something that's going on inside your body at the end of the day. Obviously this isn't a great thing to have. You don't necessarily want your periods to stop for a prolonged period of time, but there were a lot of questions as to why it was about, why it happened. And although we then did realise it was because of the Lyme's, we went through every other single venture, like literally everything. I remember I went to the doctors and then they wanted me to go and have certain scans because they were worried that I had cysts on my ovaries and that I had polycystic ovaries. Then you'd go to someone else and you'd be like, well, you don't have polycystic ovaries because you don't have spots, you don't have facial hair and things like that. And I was sat there thinking, you don't know what I have, I don't know what I have, you're not an expert. Just like random people would give their opinions. And although I don't know that much about polycystic ovaries, and that's not what I have, I'm so very lucky that I don't. I hate how in this day and age, it's a bit like having a disability or having something wrong with you, or mental health, or an invisible illness. Everyone just assumes that they know what someone with that disease or what someone with that lifestyle looks like. It doesn't work like that. So that would really get me annoyed. But when I went to the doctors, basically they referred me for tests because they obviously wanted to know what was going on. So these tests that I was referred to have done, they were checking my thyroid levels, they were checking all my hormone levels, and they were pretty inconclusive. They couldn't figure much out from that. So then the next stage for me was to have an ultrasound for one, but obviously there was no baby there. And then also, I don't know what they call it, but basically, warning, graphic and not the nicest thing to have. So at this time I was 17 probably actually, and I had slept with one person, and I have openly said that sex was something that I was really afraid of. So then when it came down to having one of these tests, it's basically where they take a plastic, oh, I can't remember exactly what it was. Basically, picture like a plastic dildo. That's kind of what it's like. And they prod it inside of you because they're trying to check for something inside of you. I'm not even sure what it was. I feel like in my mind I kind of blanked it out because it was just not a very nice experience. First of all, they did the ultrasound where you have to drink loads and loads and loads of water, and then you cannot go to the toilet because they need all that water in your stomach so they can check it. And obviously for me, being like a 16-17-year-old girl, obviously mum was there by my side, but having this ultrasound because they're trying to check if I can't have kids rather than if I'm going to have a kid. Like, I never thought the first time I was going to have an ultrasound was because my hormones were so screwed up and I wasn't able to get pregnant. Not that I wanted to at that age, but obviously it's still something you think about, especially me, whose biggest fear throughout the whole of their life had always been not being able to have kids and wanting to be a mum so badly. So the ultrasound they basically couldn't do. They tried and then they said you still don't have enough water in your body. So I literally had to drink litres and litres and litres and litres and litres of water to the point where you're literally like, I am going to wet myself. And that's when they did the ultrasound and it still didn't show anything. They were still like, what's going on? So then the bit that was the most scarring and the bit that I've kind of blanked out was the insertion of this plastic thing that I think they're taking like a swab, or it's got like a scanner on it or something along those lines. And I cried. Like, I cried. I'm not trying to scare people off if they have to have this done. Like, it's your health at the end of the day. It's very important to like know these things and them to test in this way. But it was horrible. It hurt so very much. And what made the experience even worse was obviously I had mum on my side holding my hand, helping me through it, everything like that. But this woman who was doing the tests, this doctor or nurse, I'm not sure who she was, she literally, when I got upset and I was like, ow, ow, this really hurts, she goes, well, you should be grateful. They used to do it with metal ones. And I'm like, thinking back to that now, like, I was a young, impressionable girl. Even if I was going through that now, a young, impressionable girl who had a valid reason to feel the way that she did. Like, she was scared. It's really weird talking about myself in third person. But again, it's that sort of thing of, oh, they seem like they've got all their shizness together, they seem fine, they need to man up, like people have been through worse, which I get. And I always say this, I always say I have been so lucky, but you always dealt a card of your life. I hate that you do have, like, you have to say that because I know I am, but then also it's like what that saying is of everyone's feelings are valid, just like I said in my Limes video, that like I was allowed to be upset and scared in that moment, and that woman literally just blazed all over it and was acting like it was no big deal, it's absolutely fine, and I was being a wimp, which obviously did not help with the experience. Again, from those tests, it still came back as inconclusive. They didn't know what was going on. People who I knew tried to tell me that I was too skinny, that's why I wasn't getting my period, that's why my period had gone, and I was like, no, that is not the reason. They've literally checked, that is not the reason. It's nothing to do with that. My periods were fine when I'd been this weight. It was absolutely nothing to do with that. But again, it's society judging you and making those assumptions, which isn't fair. I hadn't done anything to stop my periods from happening. I hadn't changed anything that I was doing. I do think stress again was brought a lot into it. It's scary how much stress plays a part in so many illnesses, yet it's something that none of us really know how to control. I wish I knew how to control my stress levels, but sadly not. Sadly, that's not something I have come to terms with and got grips of. And again, that sounds so silly because I feel like people would think like, she's just a 20-year-old girl doing YouTube, like what does she have to be stressed about? And I agree. Like, if I compare to the stresses that full-blown adults live in their life and everything like that, if I compare to the stresses that they have, I have nothing. But I was saying this to someone the other day who is a parent, is an adult, is living their life, and they said, yeah, but the thing is, when you're younger, you get caught up in all the stress. You don't necessarily know how to deal with it, whereas when you get a bit older, you've gone through it and you kind of know what bits not to let yourself stress about. So I do hope in time I will become less stressed, because that would be great, and I hope you guys also do. I definitely need to get into things like meditation, but hold back on the period, no periods, no pregnancy, no children train. So those tests went on for about 3 months and still nothing came back from it. We really had no clue, and it's really weird because I feel like I just forgot that that's what your body is supposed to naturally do. Your body is supposed to naturally have a period, and it was just really out of sync for me. And then I just spent my time thinking, like, when's it gonna come back? Is it gonna come back? Because we all know if you don't have periods, you can't have children. That is how it works. So although I obviously wasn't worried for that moment then, because I didn't want a baby right now and I had no one to have a baby with, but I literally used to not sleep at night thinking, I'm not gonna be able to have children, I'm never gonna be a parent. And obviously I know you can adopt, you can foster people, you can foster children. I know there are so many options, but for me, I have always been that person that's like, I really, really, really want a baby. Like, really, really want a baby. So it literally used to drive me crazy with the thought of, I don't even know if I can have a baby. And I think so many people go through that and they just don't talk about it, because it's almost like you're not allowed to have that fear, because like, where is that stemmed from? But I had a reason to have that fear. I didn't have periods. I was told that if I tried to get pregnant now, it wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have been able to. So I was just thinking, how long is this gonna last for? Like, what's gonna happen? And really, really, really weirdly, like, honestly, none of us really get it. But this January, after filming that periods video that me and mum did, I will also link that down below if you haven't seen it. After filming that video, and I think, sounds really peculiar, but after having testosterone in my life, you guys may have seen, was going on dates, and I just feel like there's been a lot more maleness in my life, and that probably has absolutely nothing to do with it. We're probably making this up, but that's just how like me and the family have like been like, oh yeah, it must have like woken up my hormones. But to this day we still don't know what's brought them back. I had 3 periods which were perfectly timed, and there were 4 weeks in between, and then my most 2 recent ones have been 3 weeks. I don't know if that's now how my body cycle is going to be, that they're going to be every 3 weeks. I still have incredibly light periods, I always have. But obviously when you're not having a period, your body is still producing part of it, and that was my problem. In the end of it, we got to the point that it was my progesterone? No. Yes, maybe. It was the hormone which basically tells your body to actually have the period that wasn't happening. I was still producing eggs, and hence why we were worried that I would have cysts on my ovaries, because there could be a build-up of eggs and then you can have cysts. But I was very, very lucky that I didn't have any cysts in the end. We were also kind of expecting, when I did get my period, for it to be like a mega period. Love that. But that never happened either. They've just been back how they were 2.5 years ago. And I'd love to say I know the solution, I'd love to say I know how people can fix it, but sadly it's down to everyone's body. I feel like maybe I have learned to be a little bit less stressed this year, which has helped. I also think as time has gone on and the effect of Lyme's disease that it's had on my hormone levels has decreased over time. Obviously I had Lyme's disease, my peak of Lyme's disease, like 4 years ago, so it is peculiar that it took some time for it to affect my hormones and my periods, but it did. So now, although obviously the Lyme's is dormant, my body is still dealing with the aftermath 4 years later, which is absolutely crazy. And my hormones was part of that. So yeah, although it's obviously not great if you did maybe get your period and then it stopped for a bit of time, don't do a me and completely worry and like paint out this picture of what your life is going to be like, because hopefully things do work out in the end. And I know it's not like that for everyone, and honestly it breaks my heart to think about all those people that don't get to have kids, because that's just yeah, that's just horrendous. And I'm very grateful that my periods have come back, and hopefully, touch wood, hopefully I'll be absolutely fine and I will be able to have children. But I just wanted to make this video to just show that it's not really something that's discussed about that much, but I do think it's something that a lot of people actually deal with. So don't sweat the small stuff. Don't get so caught up in it like I did, because that probably also didn't help the fact my periods weren't coming, because I was so stressed about not having them. But I personally am a really strong believer in natural ways of doing things. So I have a nutritional therapist, I take supplements, but they are personal to me and my body. So if this is something you're interested in, I would look much more into it, because we have always been a very natural family. Like, I have literally taken paracetamol probably about 3 times in my life, and of course that's my personal decision to do that, but I would prefer to deal with something naturally, and then if that doesn't work out, then turn to the doctor's way of fixing things. But sadly, the doctor's way of fixing things didn't help me those 2.5 years without my periods. So yeah, it's a fear that a lot of people have. Don't just think it's you, because it's quite natural to fear that if it's something you really want in your life. But that's kind of my piece on it. Again, this video doesn't necessarily achieve that much per se. I don't have a one fix solution, but I just hope that sharing stories and like being honest and talking openly about things kind of breaks down the barriers and lets other people talk about it, because a problem shared is a problem halved. I just think that it's good that now in this generation we are talking more about things, but there is still so much more progress that needs to be made, and I'm grateful to have the platform to share what I went through, because again, like we all do, we blank out those times, we forget about it. Now that I've got my period back, I'm like, oh, when was that time that I never even had it? And then I literally thought it'd stopped for a year, and then I figured it out the other day and it was 2.5 years. So yeah, I feel like I will link some things down below to dealing with things naturally and period control. I know that Sarah Days was also someone that had fears of PCOS, and then she had her cervical, I can't exactly remember the name of it, but she basically had like pre-cancer cells on her cervix, and that was, oh my goodness me, to watch that was heartbreaking, because I thought, that is me. Her periods were irregular, her hormones were really out of whack, she is me. But if she's anything to stand by and she's anything to admire and follow, she did it all naturally. I will link her videos down below. Also originally brought back her periods naturally, and now she's got a blooming bubba, like she's had a baby. And yeah, that is a true magical story. So I hope that just proves to everyone that things can work out. And yeah, anyway, I'm gonna wrap up this video because I want to go and eat some dinner because I'm hungry. So yeah, I love you guys lots, and I hope this has helped somebody out there. And yeah, toodle pip, I love you lots, and bye. Make sure to like and subscribe. Bye guys.